With influences such as Dune, The Art of Brahm, and the Mad Max series, few campaign settings were as unique or memorable as Dark Sun for 2nd edition and 4th edition Dungeons & Dragons. Portraying a dead world that was ground into a desert by a magical ecological collapse, Dark Sun presented a kind of stone punk setting with swords and sandals, where metal was scarce, water was even scarcer, and almost everyone had psychic powers of one sort or another. It was awesome. A lot of people enjoyed playing it. I enjoyed Dark Sun, and I think it was my second favorite campaign setting after Ravenloft. Now, many fans of Dungeons & Dragons have been wondering whether Wizards of the Coast is going to have a Dark Sun module, or a Dark Sun campaign setting book, or a Dark Sun adventure book, and I think that's kind of doubtful. The main reason I doubt that Wizards of the Coast will have a Dark Sun campaign setting book or a Dark Sun adventure book is that Dark Sun was mostly modeled on restricting certain rules from the D&D core rule set, and then adding a bunch of subsystems on top of it in order to give the campaign setting its own unique flavor and mechanics. And Jeremy Crawford himself has said that 5th edition is not using subsystems. When you introduce subsystems, he said, people don't use them. And sure enough, many fans of Dark Sun have made admirable efforts to adapt the Dark Sun setting into 5th edition. But whenever they do, it seems like there are two sorts of mistakes, or at least from my perspective, they're mistakes. On one hand, they frequently begin to restrict player class options, saying that you can't be a cleric or you can't be a wizard and so on. And then on top of that, they usually add all kinds of subsystems like rules for psionics, the Templar as a class, totally new racial lineages with new statistics. And that's just a lot of work. Dungeons & Dragons is complicated enough as it is. Piling extra rules on top of it doesn't work too well. Now, I want the content on this channel to be both interesting and useful, and it is with the mention of Dark Sun that I'm happy to make this announcement. Over the next 8 videos, which I hope to complete before the year is through, we are going to make a Dark Sun adventure module. We are not going to make it from scratch. We are not going to make up a bunch of stuff and try to introduce it into 5th edition. Instead, we are going to take an existing 5th edition adventure module, and we are going to reskin it and rearrange its parts and replace a couple of things so that it is a Dark Sun adventure with all the cool Dark Sun adventure-y stuff. I am proud to announce Rime of the Dark Sun, for we are going to adapt Rime of the Frostmaiden into a Dark Sun campaign. I'm going to take chapters 1, 2, 3, 4, 6, and 7 of the module and show you which parts to take, what to change, how to change them, and in so doing to end up with a really fun Dark Sun adventure module that feels like Dark Sun. This first video is an announcement video in which I'm going to talk a little bit about what Dark Sun is and how the campaign setting works. The next video will be a set of general mechanical changes and reinterpretations which we are going to apply across the module Rime of the Frostmaiden. After that, we're going to have a video talking about the 10 towns regions and how to convert them into various parts of the city of Tyr or villages near the city of Tyr. For the 4th video, we're going to have a table full of wilderness encounters, which we're taking from Chapter 2 of Icewind Dale, Rime of the Frostmaiden. We're going to replace wintry monsters with weird desert monsters that have psychic powers. Then we'll talk about Sunblight, reskinning it as the fortress of King Kalek, the Sorcerer King in exile. Destruction's Light will be replaced with a chapter I think we should call Wrath of the Sorcerer Tyrant. And after that, we're going to reskin the Caves of Hunger so that they are a jungle place full of cannibalistic halflings and other dangers. And finally, the city of Ythryn will be the lost city of the Defiler Mages. And the whole campaign setting is going to be focused on rediscovering the ancient past from before the world ended and protecting the newly liberated city of Tyr from the reaction from the Sorcerer King who, in exile, is plotting his revenge. Now, I am not aiming to recreate the details of the Dark Sun world in its entirety as it was elaborated in 2nd edition. I am going to feel free to take elements of that history and elements of that campaign setting, simplify them, rearrange them, and recast them in this adventure for maximum convenience. I want to stress this again. This exercise is meant to be convenient and easy. In fact, as an homage to Mike Shea, aka Sly Flourish, I would want to call this a lazy DM's guide to building a Dark Sun campaign. We're going to take Rime of the Frostmaiden and change things around so that it's a Dark Sun module. Why Rime of the Frostmaiden? Well, both of them are harsh campaign settings in which the environment makes it difficult to survive and adds a certain amount of lethality to the world. As we'll see, it's easy enough to replace blizzards with sandstorms, extreme cold with extreme heat, and the Goliaths of Rime of the Frostmaiden with the half-giants of Dark Sun. If you reimagine this module in a color of fiery orange instead of ice blue, in other words, you've got something that's very much like Dark Sun already. You just need to change some of the names and some of the monsters, and maybe a couple of the general rules for how the NPCs will behave and what their goals are. So look out for those 7 more videos which are going to explain how this conversion works. As for the rest of this video, let's talk about what the Dark Sun campaign setting is, in general narrative descriptive terms, not in terms of mechanics. That comes next video. As a campaign setting, Dark Sun is best described as fitting 3 specific themes. The theme of ecological collapse, the theme of metaphysical isolation, and the theme of struggle against oppression. Those are the 3 main themes. Let's start out with ecological collapse. In the Dark Sun campaign setting, the entire world has been transformed into a vast and moistureless desert, and the reason why is because of overuse and over-reliance on magic. Magic, in the world of Dark Sun, sucks out the life. It drains the life of the world around the spellcaster in order to power those spells. Or at least the most powerful type of magic does this, and people want to practice the most powerful type of magic. So if somebody casts Magic Missile or Blur or Misty Step, the ground beneath their feet would wither and die, grass would turn brown and dead, microbes in the soil would become barren. And over hundreds or thousands of years, the vast power and conflicts of wizards and sorcerers eventually drained it all up. Now, the world of Dark Sun, known as Athas, has only a few struggling, narrow strips of greenery across the world, and humankind tries to rough it in the desert. Speaking of humankind still exists in this setting, but most of the traditional fantasy Tolkien-esque races of Dungeons & Dragons do not. Or, if they do exist, they are very transformed by what has happened to their planet. Dwarves, for instance, still exist, but they are hairless. Elves still exist too, but they are isolationist, xenophobic, tribal types of people that live out in the desert. They are long-distance runners with long legs, and they grow up to 8 or 9 feet tall. Gnomes don't exist, dragonborn don't exist, orcs don't exist, although in their place there is a fantastic praying mantis-like insect race called the Thri-Kreen. There are also Goliaths, or half-giants, so-called not because of the result of a human and a giant breeding, but because they are halfway to being a giant. They're like mini-giants. And all of these creatures have some kind of psychic powers, whether it's just a little bit of telepathy or a little bit of telekinesis. Psychic powers are common amongst the people of the Dark Sun world. Indeed, because everyone knows the defiling powers of magic and how magic destroyed everything and drained the world of its life, magic is frowned upon. It's a very low magic setting. If you cast an arcane spell in a town, you're likely to be attacked by an angry mob. So much of the work that magic used to do in this campaign setting is now done with psychic powers. And it's not just the intelligent people of Athas that have psychic powers. Monsters have psychic powers, animals have psychic powers, even plants have psychic powers. That's another thing worth mentioning. Most of the traditional fantasy monsters of Dungeons & Dragons do not exist on Athas. The Dark Sun campaign setting does not have manticores or chimeras or trolls, or any fey creatures for sure. Instead, it has strange aberrations, giant insects, giant lizards, and psychic carnivorous plants. Now, in the next video, we're going to talk about the easy, lazy way to accommodate all of this mechanically in a setting. We're going to talk about reskinning the process of spellcasting. We're going to talk about how you can redescribe certain races so that they come out sounding like Dark Sun creatures and not Forgotten Realms creatures. We'll get to that. For now, we're just describing what the setting is like. So the first theme is ecological collapse. It's caused by magic, and now everyone lives in a harsh desert world where most of the magical things from a fantasy setting have died out and been replaced by alien, weird, psychic things. Now the second theme of the campaign is metaphysical isolation. When I say metaphysical isolation, I mean this. On the world of Athas, there are no gods who talk to mortals. No cleric, no religious person ever hears the voice of their deity, or in any magical way interacts with their deity. They're more like in the situation that Kierkegaard describes, of needing faith to even wonder how it's possible for there to be deities. Of course, people may still be religious, and, as we'll describe in next video, we can still have divine spellcasters, But as far as the magic or the flavor of the world is concerned, Athas is a godless world. In addition, there are no ways to access other planes of existence. There are no extraplanar beings, there is no planar travel, and there is no summoning creatures from other dimensions or other planes of existence. The world of Athas is metaphysically isolated in this sense too. It is uniplanar. And finally, as I mentioned, because there are no gods, there isn't any divine spellcasting. In the place of clerics who have temples where they heal the sick, Athas has, well, shrines and groves that are tended to by druids, who use all of their identification with the natural world to procure water and try to help their communities. Their magic is not the magic of gods, but the magic of natural elements. This magic, by the way, did not result in destroying the world, and its casting does not result in the destruction of life. Only arcane magic in the Dark Sun setting does that life-destroying, defiling stuff. And, as we'll talk about next video, only certain kinds of arcane magic. Conveniently, the kinds that your PCs will not be using. And the final theme is the struggle against oppression. Almost all people in the world of Athas live in massive city-states that are ruled by tyrannical sorcerer kings. These kings are often centuries old, and they have spent their whole lives practicing defiling magic, siphoning more and more life out of the world to become more and more powerful. Their eventual goal is to ascend and become a dragon. The Dark Sun campaign setting does have dragons, or more correctly, it has one dragon, but a dragon in the Dark Sun campaign setting is not like the dragon that you'd find in Fizban's Treasury of Dragons or in the Forgotten Realms. These dragons are more like liches. When a sorcerer king practices a powerful ritual, they ascend and become a dragon, a giant reptilian creature that walks on two legs, bipedal, and, over the course of its immortality, is driven to pursue more and more power and more knowledge of magic. In order to achieve this incredible end, of course, the Sorcerer King needs to destroy a huge amount of life using an arcane spell. And indeed, that's why the Sorcerer Kings are careful to watch over their populations. Each one of them plans to commit genocide, annihilating their entire city-state in order for them to become dragons. That's pretty awful. What's even worse is that the economies of these city-states are all based on slavery. The vast majority of people in this campaign setting are either gladiators or slaves or conscripted and oppressed to serve. Indeed, ultimately, the main antagonist of the setting of Dark Sun are not the Sorcerer Kings, but the system of slavery itself, as it is maintained not only by individual slave masters, but upheld by the Sorcerer Kings and their servants, the Templars, as well as merchants and raiders who profit from this trade. The struggle against slavery and the struggle to overthrow slavery and achieve liberation is a major theme in the Dark Sun campaign setting. And that brings me to a final point. In addition to ecological collapse, metaphysical isolation, and social oppression, this is a setting with heroes. This part is important. Dark Sun is not a nihilistic setting in which everyone is terrible. It's not Warhammer 40k where everyone sucks and there's no good side. Goodness may be rare, but it's not non-existent. Indeed, the rarity of goodness on the world of Athas makes heroism all that more heroic. And sure enough, when we're creating our Dark Sun adventure, we're going to make sure to place the player characters in a position where they are going to be resisting Sorcerer Kings, fighting against slavery, struggling for liberation, and participating in all of these neat themes that I've just described. So, that's today's exciting announcement. We are going to construct a Dark Sun adventure by reskinning Rime of the Frostmaiden and changing just a few things about it. Next video, we're going to talk about some general mechanical changes that we're going to pursue throughout the entire conversion of the module. We'll talk about how to handle heat, we're going to talk about managing water, magic and psionics, how those work, as well as reskinning lineages for player characters' use. And if you want to make sure that you don't miss these videos that I'm uploading, hit that bell icon to make sure that you get notifications about the content that I upload every week. Also, don't forget to hit like and subscribe, and thanks for watching. See you in the next video.